Have you ever found yourself working seamlessly with teammates in your favorite multiplayer games, whether it's raiding in an MMO or cooperatively enjoying Minecraft? But you're worried or scared about working with others in your job, your career, or hiring people for your business? Well, today we're going to be delving into the skills that you've developed in your favorite games to help you overcome those scary situations. So stick around as we unlock the secrets to leadership and teamwork through the games that you play. Hey, I'm Daniel. Thank you so much and welcome to Dragonmore XP, where we empower gamers with the skills that they need to succeed in life through the games they play. So I believe that every game that we play, every gaming experience, is really just contributing to our own personal growth and our success outside of gaming. So I'm here to help you achieve that by delving into the specific personal development topics. And today we're going to be talking about teamwork and leadership. So starting with leadership, really, what is a leader, right? So we talk. So I guess the teamwork framework is just kind of like we want to have that camaraderie. We want to have being able to work smoothly in a team. But when we have leaders of those that are in charge of the group, and I'm not talking about just like the boss, right? Like the person that's just in charge, but somebody that's an effective leader, has that responsibility, and but you actually like want to follow them, right? They actually attract people to follow them as opposed to just, oh, you're my boss, I have to do what you say. So a leader really, I think there's two important things that a leader has versus say like a boss, and especially versus like someone like a follower. And that the first is that they see it as it is, meaning that they don't see it worse than it is, right? That uh, they're not trying to play down the issues or whatever, but they're not obsessed on the issues. They're not just like, well, everything's gone to crap and this is the terrible situation we're in. They're at least clear and realistic to say, hey, this is where we are. This is our starting point. And then the second thing is they also can clearly communicate. There you go, where they want to go, right? What is the objective? Where are we headed? To really motivate the team for that clarity, right? Because if you don't know what the target is, then everybody kind of scatters and does their own thing, right? So you need to know where you're going. So effective leaders effectively communicate where they're going or where they need the team to go. So what I found from gaming versus business is that it's a lot of the same thing, right? So when you talk about leadership in a gaming context, we talk about like raid leading or just like team leads, whether whatever kind of games you're playing. So this is effective, especially effective in things like MMOs. So where I've been a guild leader and a raid leader, and raid leading is so much so in tune with what business leadership is that it's just bizarre. This is like the epiphany for me for this kind of concept, this kind of using our gaming skills to really improve our lives. It came through for me, my personal story, through an MMO, through Star Wars: The Old Republic, for those that have played that one. And my favorite example is, so if anybody played and remembers, there was the raid called Denova, and there was Nightmare difficulty Kephis, right? The last boss of this dungeon or raid. And he was an absolute nightmare, pun intended. Uh, it was like this 10-minute fight of just so many mechanics and so much going on. And getting people to actually go through it, like it definitely took a while. It took a lot of patience, and as far as like being the raid leader of it, trying to guide people to actually do the mechanics correctly, to learn from their mistakes, and to keep the encouragement up, because you're just failing constantly, just wiping over and over again until we finally succeeded. And not only did we succeed, we exceeded well ahead of most of the rest of the server. I think our guild was server second, right? We were Empire first, server second for killing this boss. And we were not the most geared. We raided only 2 nights a week, right? Like we did not have the amount of time and hours that some of these big raiding guilds did, that they were just raiding every day. But we beat like all of those guys, right? There was only one guild that did it faster than us. And that was because that we really worked well as a team. We learned from our mistakes, and we had that camaraderie. And it was just so fun to like actually complete that. And then it was so bizarre when I went back to work, doing like the 9 to 5 job, and they're like, I was like, hey, can I get a promotion? Can I like, I'd like to earn more, right, in this company. And they're like, oh, well, we just don't see your leadership potential. And there I was kicking myself like, oh, I don't have any leadership skills. And then, then I go home and then do raids for hours at a time. Like, why don't I have leadership skills? And so that's when it dawned on me. That's when this whole journey began to say, like, no, I have these skills. I have these skills because I play games. It's not necessarily in the same context, but the skills are there. I just have to like reframe them. And that's really all it was. So that I got, I went back to the boss, to the job, and it was like, hey, I have these skills, and like, let me tell you about like how I've led teams. And it's working through a game example. Sometimes you have to put it in a different lens, I'll say, just so that they'll get it. But they did put me in charge of a team. They said, hey, okay, well, we'll have a cross-functional team for you. And so I worked in supply chain. So it's like, hey, we're going to give you this product. You need to find out how to take 10% of the cost out of the product, right? If the product costs $100, take out 10, it needs to be a $90 product by like the end of 3 months or something. So, okay. But I just used everything that I learned, like leadership from rating, to be like, okay, well, here's the objective, right? It's beat the boss, like get 10%. Okay. And then going through all the different, the phases, the fight of like, all right, what can we change? What are we allowed to change? Who do we have to talk to? And then who is my team? Who has what skills? What can we do? And then like delegating that out and say like, all right, you got to work on that. You got to work on that. And we come back, and I didn't realize that when they sent this 10% target, it was an unrealistic target. So the product had been kind of mature, so the hadn't been a lot of opportunity to take cost out, I guess, anymore. So they set the unrealistic target of like 10%, expecting me to get like 3 to 5%. Because that's what they were hoping for, right? Because if you set the target at 5, then people only get 1 or 2, right? So we set the high target, and like you don't meet it, but hey, they got something that they wanted. Okay, but silly me, I was like, well, we got to do 10%, and so finally, after doing all this, pulling everything back and having like this amount of delegation and understanding of how everything worked, we actually got 12%, right? We actually ended up beating the target that they didn't think that we would achieve. And all of that, I commend the team, because it's again, it was all about this, using this gaming framework to be like, all right, we just need to have this collective team that just jives well together, and we did, and like they were excited to work on it, and I was excited to lead it, and we just it just happened, and it just, so it coalesced together, and we meet the target, and so they were overwhelmed with with the amount of savings I got them. And I attribute that to video games. It was those leadership qualities, those leadership skills from having worked with the teams, in games where we've failed over and over again. We had to try different ideas. We had to do different things to keep the morale going, because it was, failure after failure. And so I think that's a big thing that's missing in like kind of corporate America, is that you're not like allowed to fail. It's kind of odd in that sense, whereas like gamers, we understand that clearly. It's like, oh yeah, something doesn't work, you just try it again. Like, oh, like boom, that exploded, my character died, well, I'll just do it differently next time, right? It's like failure is like expected in video games, but not in the corporate world. But I gave an environment too, which I think is really valuable as a leader, is that you give an environment where no idea is bad, like failure is okay, because failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the road to success. That I've had mentors say that, and it's so true, that like you have to fail. Those that succeed more often fail more, right? Because they take more chances and they actually get to where they want to go. So that's what I wanted to encourage you guys, as far as when you're looking at leadership and teamwork in your organizations, and whether it's your job or starting your own business, is that you look at the teams as like your team when you're going to fight something in like a raid or in a game. Like you bring your buddies with you and you're going to go kill the boss. It's the same thing. Like it really is. It's just the context of what you're doing it in is like, is it in a game or is it in an office? Like that's the only difference. The terminology is slightly different and what you can control is slightly different, but it's really the same skills. So, okay. So that makes a lot of sense as far as getting the team on board and like actually getting through to an objective. I do want to have at least a little bit for the teamwork side of it, right? As a follower, right? Because not everybody is like me. Not everybody's like a raid leader. Not everybody wants to be a leader. I completely get it. So as far as the teamwork aspect of it, like it's nice when you have a good leader that can kind of show you the way. But one thing I've noticed as far as teams and teamwork is having that kind of that same kind of goal, right? When you want the shiny object, you want the loot, you want to kill the boss, you want to whatever it is. And I've noticed that there's something very interesting about that uh, in games we call it getting carried, right? It's like I just want the thing, like I just want the mount or the weapon or the whatever, but I want to do the least amount of work to get it, right? We call that being carried, right? Well, there's something in the workplace also that's very, very similar. It's called I'm just here for the paycheck, right? Because all you're doing is the same thing. You're getting the reward, i.e., the pay, by doing the minimal amount of work to keep the job. So, those kind of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, let me be clear. I've done that quite a bit myself. That's just sometimes how it is, right? It's just like I have something else that I'm focused on. For right now, I just want the thing. I just want the paycheck, right? And you could have a gazillion things going on, so like this doesn't have your attention, or you don't care enough that you just need to put in the minimal amount of effort. There's plenty of aspects in life that makes complete sense. So I don't want to say that that's bad. Like it's not. So for if you're watching this video, it's I think you're one of these people that want to do more, that want to see more, that want to earn more. And so if you're that kind of person that's like, okay, I've done the only for the paycheck and I'm ready to like move my career forward, I'm ready to get promoted, or I just want to earn more. Like how do I get these skills to earn more? So that's where we are on the teamwork side. And the best advice I have for the teamwork side is to speak up. And by that I mean that you have valuable knowledge that not everyone has, right? Everybody has their own unique perspective and it is valuable. And it's unfortunate that I think a lot of times companies are just like they don't value it as much as they should because they should be listening to their employees. So take that same raid example, right? One of the reasons we succeeded so well is that after like a wipe, you're like, okay, what happened? Like this thing's killing me. This thing's doing too much damage. I don't know what. And then we would change based on what was happening, and we would create, a new skill or a new process or a new strategy to say how do we deal with that. So in these particular examples, like in the raids, we ended up, like I said, we succeeded, we beat it, we were like server second, and then after a while we were like we're farming it, and we helped another guild out, and they had like way more damage than we did. Like they had the more overpowered classes. For those that remember the Marauders with the two lightsabers, they had more of those. We didn't have any, by the way, which was crazy. Uh, but then they had way more damage that we didn't have when we did it, and so their strategies were so messy by comparison. Because like we had things very structured, very orderly, because we didn't have the damage. We were like we had to be perfect, and these guys are just running around crazy because they're just like, I don't care. I'll just do the damage. It'll be fine. So okay, but if we didn't have people speaking up, and then when we go into their, as guests into their raid, we kind of speak up like, hey, the boss is doing this right here. Why don't you try this? Like you might succeed. So having these kind of unique perspectives from someone that's like the individual contributor, like the low level, like you can see things that the higher level or the management can't. So it's really good to speak up. So to give a non gaming example, so this was a crazy incident that happened to me. So I went skiing, up in, gosh, it was in spring break for when we went to Japan actually. So it was a few buddies. we went to the mountains up in Japan to go skiing, and on the way there, uh, one of them got like a little compact, tiny car that they rented, and we're driving. There's like four of us, and we're driving up the mountain to go skiing. Well, what was interesting is that because it was we were from all over, right? Like we're in Japan together, but like there's you know me and one other person from the south, and there's like one person from up in like Colorado, and there's one person from California. And so we go skiing, and it's like, all right, well, the California person's never seen snow in their life. The person from Colorado is just used to the fluffy white snow. But it's the two of us from the south that are like, hey, we see this thing on the road, and he's not slowing down. And if you're from the south, you're like, yeah, that's black ice. Like that's when it refreezes on the road and it changes the color, so it looks like really slick. So if you're from the south, you know what black ice is. And it's like, hey, you can't take that. You have to take that careful, because that's just straight up ice on the road. Well, the guy driving was from Colorado. He didn't know what black ice was. And so, like, the two of us in the back were like, well, he sees it, right? Like, we waited too long to say something, because we're like, oh, well, he understands because he knows he's driving. He's fine. He should know what black ice is. He did not. So it wasn't until, like, it was almost too late that the two of us in the back, they were like, stop, brake, slow down. And we're, because you don't want to say black ice because he doesn't know what that means either. So he finally starts slamming on the brake, but it's a little bit too late. And we actually go sliding into the guardrail, right? Overlooking this mountain. And I think if we hit it any faster, we might have gone off the cliff. So I'm like, holy crap. So we hit the guardrail, but we're okay. We're fine. And there was no other car coming. So it was like, all right, and nobody behind us. So we're all safe. But then we all got out. We're looking at the car. We're like, oh my God, what happened? It's like, and the two of us from the south were like, yeah, that was black ice. Like, you had to slow down. Like, that was there's no way that you could turn on black ice. And they're like, what's that? I was like, oh my gosh. We didn't know that he didn't know what black ice was. So it's better to be careful and let people know if you know what's going on, because it looks like the leader doesn't. Because that happens. Not everybody has all the information. So as a team player, don't assume that the leader has all the information, has perfect knowledge, because most of the time they don't. So it's okay, and they appreciate the feedback to be like, hey, I noticed this. And you're like, oh, okay. So good leaders will take that feedback and they'll rework their strategy based on your feedback. So you will unfortunately have and I don't even call them leaders, you'll have the bosses that don't take your feedback, and that's unfortunate. And you might have to even try to escalate it higher to see if you can get more attention on it. But I will say those good, even the decent leaders will take your feedback, because they know that they don't know everything. So please communicate. That's the biggest thing that you can do as a team player, because you just don't know. Like, and to give even the work example, to try to give something that happened at work, was again, interest in Japan. So like I went to Japan as part of a business trip, and we were negotiating with the supplier in Japan. And I recall having a little bit of Japanese knowledge and language experience. It was like listening to kind of their sidebar conversation, and like they didn't fully understand, I guess, like the proposal for what we were trying to do for the negotiations. But they kind of got to a point where they kind of understood, and then my colleague that was doing most of the negotiation, because I was still kind of new at this point, thought that we had a deal. And he's like, great. And he put his hand out. He's like, yeah, let's shake on it. And I had to speak up. I was like, because they were about to say yeah too, because like what they thought they were agreeing to and what he thought we were agreeing to were different. And I was like, hold on buddy. Like, I don't think they got that. Like, so we had to back it up. I'm like, so he was so excited to be done. I'm like, no, we're not done. And so I had to explain to him, like, no, they're coming at it from here, is what I understand. And it was only because I could see both sides of it, right? Because having enough Japanese knowledge and understanding to be like, yeah, they don't think it's what you're thinking. So finally put those together, and then so we did have to go back and rehash it, but at least it wasn't like a complete misunderstanding and something that was just going to create so much more headache down the road if I had not said anything. So please, please speak up and say something if you have information that it appears that the leader does not. And you know what? You do that all the time in video games, right? Because you're like, hey, this isn't working. I'm floundering over here. I'm dying over here. You guys need to protect me more over here. You need to do whatever. Like, you do this all the time. And I'm saying you can do it at your job, in your business. And these are the kind of skills that you'll develop. That it's just really a reframing. That's most of what this is. And what I want to share with you guys, with the world, is just, yeah, gaming is so valuable. Gaming is so valuable for development, for personal development, for these kind of experiences, because you actually learn so much more than you realize when you're playing these games. So I hope that has been helpful. Let me know what kind of teamwork and leadership stories that you guys have. Please put those in the comments. I'd love to read those. And if you want to learn more about personal development through gaming, please subscribe and stay tuned for more. So thanks so much. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.